Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Thanks to English Electric Motor Co, I have this Zero Motorcycles FXE on loan for about 2 weeks to ride and use as my daily and to do a review at the end. This is my first ride. This is just getting out on the bike and just having fun with it. It takes time to learn things, so the review actually gives you a lot of the information, the end figures and stuff, but this, noisy truck, either way, this is just about sort of the feel and the fun. Obviously, being a Zero, this is an electric motorcycle, and I have ridden one just like this before. It was the FXS. This is basically the same bike, but they've done some mods to the looks of it, basically. There's a few other little bits and pieces, like they changed the TFT, but generally the bike is the same underneath. But I do think this looks a lot better. Dirt bike style electrics very often look a bit weird, but this is actually much more homogeneous, if you know what I mean. It fits together much better. It doesn't necessarily strike you as an electric, although it is kind of obvious when you notice the motors in the middle there. There's no, petrol cap and stuff like that. But yeah, you'll get many more views of this as I do more videos on it. Okay, I've ridden 12 miles to get here, up a big hill as well, and I have 78% of my battery remaining, which means I should be able to use, 50-something% of my battery out on the roads having fun and have easy enough to get back home. The power of this one is actually currently slightly in question. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's because there's virtually no difference between the two. If you look on the website, the specs are basically identical. However, one of them you need a A1 or a CVT, and the other one you need an A2. From my understanding, this is most likely the 11 kilowatt version, because they don't think they've had any full powered versions. That was just a confusion that happened before. I thought I was going to get one of the full powered ones. But as Alec from English Electric explained to me, you honestly don't notice the difference. It's a tiny fractional difference in one of the figures, which is obviously cool because it means you can just do a CBT and ride one of these. You also have to pay for it, and this is where everyone's going to start bulking, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you. This bike is 13 grand. Yes, it's 13 grand. The range in the city is around 100 miles. The range on, motorways flat out 40. Now I'm going to have to be slightly careful because the roads are covered in gravel. They're also very wet, and this bike's done, as I say, 55 miles, as have the tyres and brakes. But that doesn't mean we can't have a little bit of fun out in the lanes. See, it's quite rapid. One of the best things about this bike is the handling. It's got enough torque and stuff to pull you out of corners, and it does 80 odd, I think. But because you've got no vibrations from the engine, because you can feel every little bit of the road through the suspension and the brakes, plus it's been set up very nicely, the handling is just fantastic, and that was the thing that struck me with the FXS. Now this is a bit more expensive than the FXS because the price has gone up, and as I say, other than some cosmetic changes in the TFT display that you used to get, well, you still get on the SRF and SRS, which makes it a little bit more modern, though that probably should have already been there on a 11 grand 125 equivalent, although it's not a 125 equivalent. It is license wise, but performance wise more like a 400 maybe. Like my DR is very comparable with this. It's just reminded me there because I could see the headlamp on the ground. They also replaced from the FXS the twin headlights into a single light, which apparently produces a lot more light and is much more usable on the road. This definitely looks like a city commuter, and it would be great as a city commuter. There's no doubt about that. But the thing is, at 13 grand, if you can accept that you're not going to do, have the same power and just get up to like 60 miles an hour or something like that, there are some much cheaper electric options out there, but they're all very small. Like the TC Max made by Super Soco. It's like a 4 and a bit grand bike, does about 60-ish, 55, 60. Got reasonable range and stuff on it. Not the same as this, but it's a lot cheaper. If someone buys this bike, it's because they really want to own like an electric supermoto or a small light electric. As I say, if you ignored the price, if I just gave this to you and said have fun on that, you'd have a lot of fun on it. Trust me. This charges using a kettle lead, so unless the public charging station you use has got a 3-pin option, you're only really going to be able to charge this at home. If you get I think there's also a quick charger available. I'm trying to remember here, but it's not a ridiculous charge time. It's easily to be charged overnight on a normal 3-pin plug because the capacity isn't that huge. But the reality is, people commuting normally commute about 20 miles a day. I know some of you are going to say, I do way more than that. I know, but on average. And it's an actual factual thing. If you look into it, the average that people do is just so small. And yet they demand their bikes to have huge ranges. I just feel so balanced and stuck. Now I will say here, because I know what the sort of comments I'll get on this video, because it's the same as any video you make with an electric bike, although things are slowly starting to turn, people are starting to get it a little bit more. I've made many videos on electric bikes, and I've made many videos talking about the ins and outs of electric bikes, what's good and bad, so I don't want to go into all that here, and I say that every time, but after the first video goes up, the comments are just full of the same old stuff. I've covered all this stuff, I've talked about it. Don't keep going on your preconceived notions or things that people have told you. Learn about the subject, find out where it is good and bad, so you can have a realistic conversation with people. Because when people just comment, you know, electric's terrible, blah blah blah, it doesn't mean anything. It's just your opinion, and that's fine. You can share your opinion, but don't think it's anything other than your opinion. It's not a fact. Facts, opinions, two different things. It's just so pleasant. That's the thing about it. They're just so nice to ride. And it's not that you want to ride like aggressively fast. It's all about efficiency, about smoothness. So when you get a nice set of corners and you just gently go between them, the throttle control is like finite because it's electric. And there's no, you know, because it's belt driven as well, you've got no clunk or rattle of the chain. You can feel everything. It's just an amazing riding experience. If we just, you know, as I've said before, if you just could put everything else aside, forget everything and just try it to ride it, forget it's quiet and all that, the feel of the ride, it's really good. Okay, we've got a nice clear road. 0 to 60. So I've now done 21 miles, I've been using the power quite a bit, I went up and down hills, remember. I'm riding this like I normally would, I'm riding it for fun, not for miles. Still got 59% of the battery left. And if you do just calm down, just a tiny weeny bit, it makes a huge difference to your total miles you get out. If you put this into eco mode, yeah, if you feel a drop in power, but the mile return is a lot more than you think. Literally rocks in the middle of the road, it's not even gravel. Oh, it feels great. Right, okay, so the hill, we're up to 84C on the motor. Okay, we're up to 90C on the motor. "96, 98, 99, 100, 101. 102, yeah, so these motors still get hot going up a hill continuously and pinning it a bit. Of course, this bike has got regen, so we are putting power back into the bike now. Going down this hill at 30, please just stay a little bit higher than that. Oh, see, the second you touch the throttle, you lost all your regen. So you kind of want to gun it down the hill and then let the regen get it all back. Not that it makes a huge difference, you know, what you use to get up that hill will not be recovered on the other side. It's a very small difference that gets recovered. You can turn it up, and that's something I will do in later videos. I'm going to get my phone connected to this and change the custom mode and make it the way I like it. Have a play with the, see how strong we can make the regen or engine braking and stuff like that. I'm also planning to take this green laning. Nothing too serious, mind. Ergonomics wise, this feels like pretty much any dirt bike. Apart from the seat. The seat is both much squidgier than you would expect from a dirt bike and very comfortable, but it's also got a bump in it in the middle for the pillion. I'd rather it was a flat bench seat, because I would, at my height at 6'4", would rather sit further back, and I have to find myself kind of wedging myself into that bump, because that's where I want to be. Of course, one of the things you can do to get a little bit more range out of this is if you do hit the town or city, just accept to not have so much power and put it in eco mode. It's still got plenty of grunt to get off the line, as I'll show you in a sec, but it does give you quite a few miles extra. That's full throttle, 30. You know, what's that, a couple of seconds? It's a lot smoother and... God damn it. Less eventful. But then again, I find myself in this quandary of like, why am I discussing practicality? Well, because it is actually very practical in some circumstances and cheap to run. Not cheap to buy, cheap to run, you know. But at the same time, it's like, because of the price of it, people buying it aren't necessarily going to buy it for practicality. It's just so tricky to know how to sort of approach this bike, because on one hand, I can completely accept that it is a rich boy's toy and it's great. From the other hand, it is a future technology that we are going to be seeing progressing, but I really would like a lot of that progression now, because, you know, the range isn't too bad, as I say, and the performance is fantastic. It's the price that's going to have to start coming down, not going up. But of course, I don't really think it's Zero's fault that in the past couple of years the prices has gone up a bit. You know, with everything that's going on and has gone on, everything's getting more expensive. But tricky. When I reviewed the FXS, I kind of reviewed it with the mind of, you know, is it good? Is it value for money? Is it good at range? Is it a good answer? Is it a good solution? Is it a good replacement for this? I don't think there's any point doing that this time. I think I should just ride this bike and experience it as an expensive toy. It will change my feel for the bike. If I stop worrying about, you know, like, well, you know, this doesn't make much sense for some people, it's very expensive. I want to experience the machine for what it is and not for all the things it isn't. So I think that's the way I'm going to go forward to this. I think we can all accept that 13 grand is expensive and it doesn't necessarily make much sense. But we can also accept that to some people 13 grand is not that much money, and to some people it's everything in the world. I understand the value of money, but I also equally understand that just because I don't have much doesn't mean that other people don't, and that, oh, it gets very into, now we're getting into human nature and stuff, and jealousy and all that sort of stuff. Oh, well, I can't afford it, so I don't like it. Let's call an end to this one here. This feels very, very much like the FXS that I rode before. The handling is absolutely lovely. The power is plenty, but not too much, so you can really get to use it. It's fun, it's peppy, it's pleasant and balanced well. Everything is absolutely gorgeous about riding this bike. The big problem is that price, as I say. But that's going to be the case with all of them, and it was the case with the old one. It's even 11 grand, it was still too much for many people, and as will this be. But as I say, as a rich fellow, a rich human's toy, it's one hell of a toy. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to help support this channel, that makes this channel possible in the first place and allows me to make honest reviews and not take, you know, all the ads and all that sort of stuff, then get over to Patreon and help me there if you could. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.